just, yeah, that's slow.
Good evening, everybody, members and members of the public. Welcome to Castle Point's Cabinet meeting on the 16th of November. First of all, we'll start off with introductions. I'm Councillor Dave Blackwell, the leader of the council, and I go over to my right, Councillor Cole.
Good evening, Mr Leader. Good evening, members. My name is Councillor Stephen Cole and I'm the Deputy Leader for Castle Point Council.
Good evening, everybody. Councillor Warren Gibson. I'm Cabinet Member for Strategic Planning.
Evening, Councillor Steve Mountford, Cedar Ward, and Cabinet Member for Waste and Environmental Health.
Good evening, everybody. Councillor Barry Palmer, Regeneration and Economic Growth.
Good evening, everyone. Councillor Carol Sage, Member for People, Health, Wellbeing and Housing.
Good evening, Councillor Michael Fuller, Cabinet Member for Resources.
Thank you, members. Apologies for absence.
Yes, Chairman, you have apologies for absence from Councillor Ross Savage.
Thank you. Members, any members' interests? Councillor Dix.
I'm Secretary of Benfleet Football Club and I note that Woodside Park is possibly mentioned later in the report.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so I've got the minutes for the previous meeting, members. Is that agreed or sign them? Agreed. Good, because I've already have. Okay, members' questions. I've got Councillor Isaacs, McLean, Blissett, Cutler, Dixon, Egan, Mrs Egan, Hart, Skip, Sue Mumfield, Ches Mumford, got Simon Archway, Simon Hart, Andrew Thornton, Jackie Thornton and Clive Waters. I've given notice they would like to ask questions. Councillor Isaacs.
Thank you, Chairman. Can I just give Councillor Riley's apologies? He's looking after his wife, and Councillor Cutler can't make it here tonight, so I do apologise.
Thank you. Okay, members, moving on. We move on to agenda item 4, which is the forward plan.
Good evening, members. We are required to produce a forward plan which contains details of key decisions likely to be taken within the next 3 months and beyond. We review the plan each month at our meetings. The plan is subject to change. Coming forward next month, which is not on this forward plan, that we are setting up a flood forum working group. If there are any questions, I'll be more than willing to take them, and if I can answer them, I will pass them over to the officers.
Members of the Cabinet, Councillor Mansfield.
Thank you. Thank you. I was wondering, I know we've talked previously about updating our overdue, out-of-date Constitution. I was wondering if we should consider putting that on our forward plan.
That's the Councillor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mumford. I have absolutely no problems with that whatsoever. Mr Leader, you have no problems. I will pass this over to Angela, though, to...
Thank you, councillors. The Constitution is a matter for full council, so any decision around the Constitution goes to full council rather than to Cabinet, so it doesn't need to appear on the forward plan. It's absolutely something that is on our work plan, and so we'll be bringing that forward in due course.
Okay, thank you for that. Right, any other questions from members of the Cabinet?
Thank you, Leader. One more question. There's I think it's a new item or one. I'd just like some details regarding the rebranding, please.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mumford. I will pass this over to our CEO, Angela Hutchins. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cole. So the customer engagement branding piece is around the council's approach to engagement with its residents, whether it's through formal consultation or through informal engagement. It's bringing forward a new approach to how the council will liaise, receive feedback and share information with the community.
Right, okay, members of the Cabinet, members of the Council, any questions? I think I had Councillor Isaacs first.
Thank you, Chairman. Knightswick Centre, approval of the business case for the refurbishment investment. Will that be taking place in December, or will that be pushed back to January?
Thank you very much for that question. I will now pass this over to our CEO, Angela Hutchins, who can answer that perfectly.
Thank you, Councillor Cole. Thank you, Councillor Isaacs. The Knightswick Centre business case is due to be brought for December. That's the plan that we're working towards. It will be an outline business case that will get us permission in order to take the designs to REBA Stage 3 before bringing back for more detailed business case in the new year.
Councillor Mumford.
Thank you, Chairman. On the plan here, it doesn't mention the Brownfield Land Register. I believe we're supposed to be publishing that imminently. Can we have an update, please? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mumford. I will now pass this over to Ian Butt.
Thank you. So there is a report on it should be on the annual monitoring report, and it will be brought along with the annual monitoring report. So it will be reported to Council.
That'll be happening in December?
I believe so, yes.
Councillor Thornton.
Thank you, Chair. On the branding, is that going to include any branding work that's being done for the website?
Thank you very much, Councillor Thornton. I will now pass you back over to the CEO, Angela Hutchins.
Thank you, councillors. The branding is generic, so it's intended to be capable of being replicated digitally or in hard copy. And the idea is that there will be an accompanying brand book which details the specifications and how it can be applied.
Councillor Thornton. Jackie Ford.
Yes. Have we engaged outside consultants on this?
Thank you very much, Councillor Thornton. I will now pass this over to the CEO, Angela Hutchins, to answer your question.
Thank you, Councillor Thornton. No.
Thank you. Then, members, if there's no more questions, we move on to item 5, the financial update. Councillor Fuller.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Good evening, members. Good evening, officers. The purpose of this report is to provide Cabinet with the latest 2022-2023 forecast in respect of the General Fund, and to update Cabinet on developments of a financial nature which may impact on the Council's financial plans in respect of either the General Fund, the Housing Revenue Account or Capital Programme. This is a lengthy, you'll have seen in your packs, it's quite a lengthy report. It contains a large number of tables, 3 actually, and a number of items. I'm not proposing to read the report line by line. What I'm proposing to do is to pick out what I think are the essentials for this evening. If there are any questions, I'll be very happy, of course, to answer them or to pass them over to the report author. But essentially, what I'm intending to do is to guide you through the report and just take out those sort of essentials which I think are important. It does contain 3 recommendations. The recommendations will be the Cabinet note the report and the financial forecast, which is in the first appendix, which you'll see over the page. That the Cabinet will agree to amend the frequency of this report from bi-monthly to quarterly, with effect from the 2023 to 24 financial year. And thirdly, a recommendation that the Cabinet agree for a new £64,200 capital scheme to be added to the Housing Revenue Account capital programme in respect of property in Manor Road, and this will be funded from the unallocated provision within the capital programme, and there'll be a little bit more detail about that later on. So the background and the basis of this financial forecast, this is the financial planning strategy is incorporated within the policy framework and the budget report which is approved by Council in February each year. The strategy requires the submission of a medium-term financial forecast, enabling the Cabinet to monitor latest estimates of future spending resources and take appropriate action to ensure that the Council's financial targets are met. On the frequency of reporting, which I mentioned earlier, ordinarily this report would be presented to Cabinet bi-monthly. Such was the degree of uncertainty in the year to date caused by the cost of living crisis and the potential inflationary impacts on the Council's contracts. There's a significant amount of work was required to be able to have a financial position that would stand up to scrutiny. And this work has now been completed for non-staffing budgets, and the budgets have been examined on a detailed line-by-line review with the budget holder, and forecasts have been amended as required. Staffing has also been subject to a separate detailed review, the work for which is reaching its conclusion, and the outcome of which will be included within the next financial update report. And this includes incorporating the impact of the staff pay award, which was recently agreed by the trade unions. On the frequency of reporting, many local authorities report to Cabinet on a quarterly basis, but I felt that this was insufficient for the purpose of ensuring that Cabinet have public sufficient visibility of the Council's financial position. The recommendation, if it's agreed, is that the first quarterly report will be presented to Cabinet in August 2023, covering Q1 with subsequent reports in November, February and May. So in summary, what this is saying is because of the uncertainty at the moment, I feel it's better to keep bi-monthly reporting, but as we move into the next financial year, in order to rationalise this and get it on a more ongoing situation, we will be reporting quarterly, which is generally is the way that these reports are delivered. Table 6.1 lists a whole lot of changes to approved budget. So these are the following budget changes that occurred since the budget was set by Council in February 2022, and these are reflected in the financial forecast, which you'll see in the Appendix 1, the third table in your pack. As I said, there are a number of lines here. The headlines, I guess. The first item, 4,863,000. This has been received from the government to cover the costs of the energy rebate scheme. It won't impact on the Council's financial forecast since it's fully offset by the expenditure we've made for that scheme. There's been some income received from the government for the administration of the local tax support scheme. There's a new burdens grant, 162 million, but then of course there are some spends as well. If you look at the last one, this is the 150,000 spend on cyber security measures, but this is going to be funded by specific grant income received in the previous financial year and held in earmarked reserves. And basically a summary of that is that the table in that paragraph, this lists changes to the budget originally approved by the Council, and these changes listed are where grant income has been received or where earmarked reserves themselves are being used for their envisaged purpose. If we move on to section 7, this is the revenue and capital budgets on watch. This section of the report highlights revenue or capital budgets, HRA, or general fund, which are identified by the Strategic Director of Resources as on watch. This term refers to expenditure and income budgets where there is reason to believe that the performance may not meet expectations, or where the impact on the Council's overall financial plan is likely to be material. And for the purpose of this report, items have been included if they have potential full-year financial impact of at least 50,000 and or are felt to be of interest to the Cabinet. These items are forecast positions for the full financial year, and whilst included within the financial forecast in the Appendix 1, which is the third table, they will require formal approval as part of the revised budget process, if not sought before. Naturally, as forecasts, the values will fluctuate and certainty is established as the year goes on. Again, there are a number of lines here. If we look at some of these, the first element, the 218,000, this is car park income at School Lane. This is due to the fact that parking has been less than anticipated, and this has resulted in a shortfall of 218,000 against the budget. And this shortfall is going to be funded by the COVID-19 earmarked reserve. There's also, if you look down on item 4, there's a 252,000 income. This is because of the leisure centres have had a strong recovery post-pandemic, with membership numbers up, reflecting in increased fees and charges revenue. It may also be, of course, that when Christmas is out the way, people will look at their waistlines and think, time to join the sports centre. We never know. And the item 5, which is the 300,000, this is for a third generation sports pitch at Waterside, which was budgeted replaced during the current financial year. But to ensure no interruption during the football season, the works have been put forward into the next, postponed until the next financial year. And on the last page on that, if you look at item 8, there is a 430,000 income interest receivable, and this is forecast to be higher than budgeted due to the unexpected increases in the Bank of England base rate. What I would now like to do is to there are some descriptions paragraph by paragraph which you'll no doubt have had the opportunity to read. There is the other item which I want to bring out particularly because it was in one of the recommendations, is the Manor Road capital scheme, which you'll see on page 5, item 813. This is an additional budget of £64,200. This is sought to be added to the HRA capital plan for works to the boundary walls and storage sheds at numbers 216 to 238 Manor Road, a council property. The retaining walls to the left and right of the block have collapsed, and the storage sheds are suffering from structural issues requiring the upper courses of bricks to be removed and rebuilt with new roofing to be fitted. And 6 contractors were asked for quotes, of which 2 responded. The budget requested represents the value of the lowest quote, and funding for this work will be from the unallocated provision within the HR capital programme. So this is basically unexpected work which needs to be done to maintain the integrity of the boundary wall of those buildings. There is also the item about the new local plan. The report presented to Council on the 16th of June included provisional indication of the financial implications of producing a new local plan. Further work is currently taking place to refine these cost estimates, and these will be reported to Cabinet and Council in due course, and once approved by Council will be reflected in the financial forecast. The last item which I want to mention specifically in the report, the medium-term financial forecast indicates a significant budget gap in all years from 23-24, which must be addressed in order for the Council to set a balanced budget each year. A programme of work is currently underway alongside the budget timetable for 2023-24. This programme includes a series of briefings and engagement opportunities for staff and members with the objective of identifying and implementing options which will effectively bring the Council's budget into balance in time for the Council meeting in February 2023, which will set the budget and the Council tax for the forthcoming financial year. And further updates will be provided to members in the coming months. Now there is a third table in Appendix 1, and the third table basically is the financial forecast. And what this, I won't go through it line by line, but the table in Appendix 1, this presents a full financial picture of the Council, taking into account the items in the paragraph 7.3. The bottom line of that table shows a forecast underspend for this financial year of an underspend of 715,000, which appears obviously to be good news, but there is some uncertainty remaining, and there are some known but unquantified risks, such as costs of the new local plan, which will impact this position. And that is the statement. So there are 3 recommendations there, and I commend the Cabinet to approve. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Fuller. Members of the Cabinet, are there any questions? No? Right. Members of Council, are there any questions? Councillor Isaacs.
Thank you, Chairman. I welcome the recommendation to move to quarterly. I think most financial institutions and businesses work on a quarterly system rather than bi-monthly. I just wonder why it's taken so long, so I'd welcome that. You mentioned the 3G pitch at Waterside, not interrupting, I know the officers here tonight, not interrupting the football season, but will it not have an impact on our spring, summer usage, if it's out of sync for a period of time, will that not reduce any income that we do get in?
Thank you to Councillor Isaacs. I'll pass that over to Lance to answer that.
Yeah, thank you, councillors. Inevitably, whilst the pitch is out of action, there will be a drop in the fees and charges that we can make for that. However, once the new pitch is there and it's a much improved pitch, I think the quality of the existing pitch leaves a little bit to be desired. We would hope that increased usage would be possible, and therefore the fees and charges would increase thereafter.
Thank you, Councillor Mumford.
Thank you, Chairman. And thank you, Councillor Fuller, for the report. Just talking about the local plan, and it says here, obviously, the costs were, some costs were identified in June, and then we're going to report it in due course. Will that come under the heading of Place and Policy in Appendix 1? I presume it would. And if that is the case, and we have a ballpark figure already, would it not be prudent to already show that in this table? And do we have a figure that we could identify? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mumford. Once again, I should pass this over to Lance Wasco for a comment, and perhaps Ian Butt may also wish to make a comment.
Thank you, councillors. At this stage, there remains a bit of uncertainty as to the way forward with the plan. And therefore it would be improper to put a forecast figure in at this stage. I don't know if Ian has anything he wishes to add.
So we're currently preparing a report for Council that will set out what the financial costs will be of the preparation of a new local plan to establish a budget for doing so. That work is still ongoing, so at this moment in time I think it's not appropriate for us to say what that figure will be, but that will be obviously in a report very shortly to Council.
Okay, members, there are no other questions. So, members, there are 3 recommendations of the financial update report. Is that agreed? Agreed. Thank you very much. Agenda item 6 is the Thames Estuary 2100 plan consultation, which, in my mind, is quite an important document because it looks on how the council will communicate with the Environment Agency and the flooding issues that we all suffer over the last few years, not only tidal, but of course surface water flooding. And I think this is so important that this is not forgotten. And I thank Ian Butt for his response for the consultation. And I think members, through this consultation, came the idea that I think as a local authority, we should have our own flood forum. Where we can meet with the various organisations to make sure that they are looking at our borough as an important aspect, because we all know we can't deny that global warming is about, and we often get the Environment Agency talking about surface water flooding and sea water flooding, but surface water flooding tends to get forgotten sometimes, and I think really, as Canvey Island, we're in a bowl, and the Environment Agency are about to embark on a huge construction and enforcing the seawalls around Canvey, which is going to take 2 or 3 years. And we're all thankful for that. But of course, most of us have suffered from heavy downfalls, rain, flooding. Even tonight, they're forecasting a lot of rain, so I don't know what we're going to get. But I'm very keen that we're on the ball on this one, and I'm very keen that this council is involved fully with all these multi-agencies. So I will be looking for members to actually volunteer to come on this flood forum, because I think it is so important that we actually move forward with this. And so members, if there's any members from the Cabinet want to ask any questions on that? If not, any members of the council? If not, then I would like the Cabinet to note the consultation and look forward to people putting their names forward to volunteer. Thank you very much. Moving on, item 7 is Places and Communities Update Developers' Contributions from Councillor Warren Gibson, the Cabinet Member, Strategic Planning.
Thank you, Chairman. Good evening, members. Good evening, officers. The purpose of this report is to seek Cabinet approval to undertake consultation on the draft Developer Contributions Guide and the Supplementary Planning Document Library in accordance with the Planning and Compulsory Purchase Act 2004 and the Town and Country Planning Regulations 2012. This report also seeks Cabinet's endorsement of the Essex Planning Officers Association Viability Protocol. This report, will be recommendations from this report, is that the Cabinet note the outcomes of the Place and Policy Scrutiny Committee and result amendments to the draft Developer Contributions Guidance Supplement Planning Documents. These can be found in Appendix 7 and 8. The Developer Contributions Guidance Supplementary Planning Documents found in Appendix 1 to 5 are published for public consultation in accordance with the Town and Country Planning Regulation 2012, as amended, and the consultation plan found in Appendix 9. In consultation with the Leader and Deputy Leader of the Council, the Chief Executive and Head of Place and Policy are authorised to make any final amendments to the Developer Contributions Guidance Supplementary Planning Documents and the consultation materials prior to consultation. The outcome of the consultation and any resultant updates to the Developer Contributions Guidance and the supplementary planning documents are reported to Council. The Council will be asked at that time to approve the Developer Contributions Guidance and supplementary planning documents for adoption in accordance with the Planning and Compulsory Purchase Act 2004 and the Town and Country Planning Regulations 2012. And that the Cabinet endorse the Essex Planning Officers Association Viability Protocol. The background to this report is that the developer contributions are ways developers contribute towards infrastructure to support growth and mitigate the impact of development on existing infrastructure. This could be secured on-site or in kind through Section 106 agreements. Financial contributions may be secured through Section 106 agreements or through the Community Infrastructure Levy, also known as SIL. The Council adopted the Developers Contributions Guidance and a supplementary planning document in 2008. Various national planning reforms have since been implemented, such as the introduction of SIL Regulations 2010 and the National Planning Policy Framework in 2012. Additionally, on the 26th of January 2022, the Council approved to submit the draft SIL charging schedule after public consultation on the document to the Planning Inspectorate for examination. The Council submitted the SIL draft charging schedule on the 1st of March 2022 and after further public consultation on the request of the examiner. The examination hearing took place on the 19th of October 2022. The key part of the evidence is an assessment of infrastructure requirements to meet the need of foreseen growth in the borough. Post-submission of SIL for examination, the Newcastle Point local plan has been withdrawn. That included an infrastructure delivery plan as a key evidence piece which was used to support SIL. As the plan has been withdrawn, the SIL examiner asked the Council to review the SIL evidence to exclude the now withdrawn local plan from the IDP. The new evidence was subject to consultation this summer, and this new evidence has been used to help inform the new DCG. Again, I'm just going to do the key points. I won't read out the full report. But we had the Section 5, the Place and Policy Scrutiny Committee. Officers presented to the committee the draft DCG and SPD library and the Essex Planning Officers Association Viability Protocol on the 12th of October 2022. The notes of that meeting can be found in Appendix 7. In summary, the following recommendations were agreed by the committee to be taken to the Council's Cabinet. The approval of the draft Developers Contribution Guidance and the supplementary planning document, library as set out in Appendix 1 to 5 for public consultation. The endorsement of Essex Planning Officers Association Viability Protocol. After thorough scrutiny and discussions, the recommendations in paragraph 5.2 were agreed subject to the following changes. To include and justify monitoring fees in the cover document, that's in Appendix 1. Add more flexibility on the tenure type of affordable homes in relation to flatted schemes in the affordable housing document, to be found in Appendix 2. Include a length of residency in relation to the local eligibility criteria for first homes in the affordable housing document. Clarify the relationship between vacant building credit and sealed credit in the affordable housing document, also in Appendix 2. The recommendations and proposed amendments following that meeting can be found in Appendix 8. The amendments proposed in Appendix 8 have also been incorporated into the latest drafts of the DCG and the SPD library. These are clearly marked as track changes in Appendix 1 and 2. Following scrutiny of Appendix 1 to 5, it is recommended that the draft documents are ready for public consultation in accordance with the Council's adopted statement of community involvement in the Town and Country Planning Regulations 2012. Details of the proposed consultation arrangements are set out in Section 8 of this report. I'm going to skip there to Section 6.4. This is the drafting section of 106 agreements. The Council's legal team, external solicitors acting on behalf of the Council, will issue Section 106 agreements. In all cases, the Council will undertake due diligence on the landowner and all landowner parties. This will be in the form of checks at Companies House and or credit agency references. The SDP also requires a guarantor in any instance where a financial contribution is required. This will ensure that payments will be made on all planning obligations and provide reassurance to the Council. Where a financial contribution is required at a deferred stage, a bond may be required to provide financial security to the Council. The use of guarantors and bonds and the types of each financial obligation will be drawn out and agreed in the relevant Section 106 agreement. Where the financial contributions are paid to the Council, these will be held in an interest-bearing account and will be paid in accordance with the trigger points out in the Section 106 agreement. These will be linked to when and what infrastructure is required to be delivered and at time. Unless specified otherwise, where these contributions are unspent within 10 years by the Council, they will be returned to the payee in accordance with the terms and the agreement. Following the place on Policy Scrutiny Committee, amendments have been proposed to this section of the cover document. Previously, this section highlighted what monitoring fees will be used to pay for. The updated section now includes more detail in the different types of fees that we may charge for the monitoring of planning obligations. This section sets out a fee per obligation and identifies where a fee may be different or where an annual fee may be appropriate. A separate fee for affordable housing unit is set out recognising the challenge associated with this area of monitoring. A cross-reference is made to the Essex County Council Essex Developers Guide to Infrastructure Contributions, where they use different fees for the types of infrastructure they provide. Is that okay?
Yeah, we're just looking at
Okay, no problem. Right. Okay, thank you, Ian. Okay, I'm now going to move to the DCG SPD affordable housing. I won't bother reading out all of Section 6, as I'm sure you've had time to read it for yourselves.
Turn yours off. Try that.
Testing.
Oh, no, is
that better? Where was we? We was up to the affordable housing bit, weren't we? Yeah. Okay, so affordable housing is generally defined as either affordable housing for rent, it's the same.
I'll move over. My one's working well.
Sorry.
That one does it, it's going to be me, isn't it?
It's you.
That one does. Oh, there we go. Right, apologies. Let's move on. Affordable housing is generally designed as either affordable housing for rent. Let's try it out. Affordable housing is generally defined as either affordable housing for rent or affordable home ownership products. The DCG SPD looks at both types of affordable housing and describes how they will be delivered. It sets the level of affordable housing requirements as per local plan policy, housing mix, tenure, exempt application and specialist housing units, as well as the more technical aspects of how affordable will be delivered and secured. Since 2011-12, only 169 affordable homes have been delivered in the borough. This includes both affordable housing for rent and affordable home ownership products. This equates to an average of 17 per annum against the need which was identified in the South East Essex Strategic Housing Market Assessment, and then in 2017 for up to 353 affordable homes per annum. This highlights the need for affordable housing within the borough and how important it is to maximise the number of affordable homes on development sites. We're now going to move on to the first home section, which is 6.8.11. The government introduced first homes in 2021 as their preferred. Sorry, Dan. That's all.
Sorry, Councillor Gibson. Could you just hold on for one moment?
Yes, of course I can.
Try a technical fix.
Yeah, no problem.
If we could just turn everything off and then try. Yep. If you'd like to continue, you're right.
Thank you, Anne. First homes. The government introduced first homes in 2021 as their preferred discounted market tenure. The planning practice guidance states that they should account for 25% of all affordable housing units provided from developers. The SPD highlights that the council will accept first homes as a form of affordable housing provision. First homes are discounted market sale units which must be discounted by a minimum of 30% against the market value. Only sold to a person or persons meeting the first home eligibility criteria. On their first sale, will have a restriction registered on the title at Her Majesty's Land Registry to ensure this discount as a percentage of current market value. And certain other restrictions are passed on at each subsequent title transfer, and after the discount has been applied, the first sale must be at a price no higher than £250,000. To be eligible to purchase first homes, the government has set the following national criteria which will apply on initial and all future sales of first homes. I'm not going to go through the whole of the criteria. I'm going to now go on to the providing affordable housing. So some registered providers who provide homes in a borough will have a strategic partnership and be approved by Homes England. Homes will therefore have to meet certain requirements in order to be adopted by RPs. This includes design standards such as nationally described space standard. In return, we'll have to set affordable rents in line with the council standards, implement long-term management and maintenance, give the council 100% nomination rights on dwellings. This will be agreed for a Section 106 agreement. Affordable housing will always be sought on sites. Only in exceptional circumstances will consideration be given to whether an equivalent financial contribution or the provision of free service land to an RP will be allowed. The applicant will be advised to discuss this at a pre-application stage, highlighting any viability issues. The SPD sets out the parameters within which a developer must provide on-site affordable housing. It will always be a priority to secure them as early as possible. The expectation is that they should be completed before the completion of 80% of the marketed housing. We now go on to the financial contributions for affordable housing. In all instances of on-site provision of affordable housing is the preference. There may, however, be some scenarios, e.g. viability or the site context, that would make it difficult to deliver affordable housing on-site. In those exceptional cases, the council would accept financial contributions. Section 7 of the Affordable Housing DCG SPD sets out how the council would deal with financial contributions in lieu of site affordable housing. The financial contribution will be the equivalent to the cost of on-site provision. As a guide, unless the type of affordable housing provided on-site indicates otherwise, the SPD states that it should be assumed that this will be for a 2-bedroom, 4-person terraced house. This is the most common type of affordable housing required in a borough. The payment of contributions will be set out in a Section 106 agreement, including the timing of payments. Financial contributions in lieu of affordable housing must be made by the date of 80% of the market units are occupied, or the site if it is being constructed in phases, each of the phases unless agreed otherwise. Where a contribution is required, a guarantee provision will be included in the Section 106 agreement. This may be in the form of a bond or parent company guarantee. I'm now going to move on to I will just briefly outline about the seal credit and a vacant building credit. That's section 6.828. Following scrutiny of the SPD, it was proposed that the relationship between the seal credit and vacant building credit is explained. In terms of seal, existing in-use buildings can act as a credit to offset the chargeable development liable for seal payment. Each square metre of existing buildings on the site reduces the seal charge by 1 square metre. The SPD is clear that applicants should not be seeking seal credit and vacant building credit. Section 6.9, this is the blue and green infrastructure of open spaces and biodiversity. Members may notice that there is no DCG SPD for blue and green infrastructure, open spaces and biodiversity. It is the intention to create an SPD in due course covering all these infrastructure types, and summary for each type is set out below. I'm not going to read out through all the summaries because as you've had the report there yourself. I'm now going to skip on to 6.817, which is the providing affordable houses. So, we've done that, haven't we? Hold it, sorry. Going to section 7 now is the Essex Planning Officers Association Viability Protocol. It is proposed that the EPOA Viability Protocol is endorsed by the Cabinet. The document meets national policy requirements, providing a clear process for when, why and how viability proposals will be required and assessed. EPOA comprises the Chief Planning Officers and other planning officers across Essex local authorities who work together to resolve planning issues faced in the county. This document had input from its members and provides a best practice guide for all stakeholders involved in the viability process. Endorsement of this document would provide further information on the viability requirements for applicants above what is proposed within the draft DCG SPD library. Prior to adopting an SPD, the Council has a duty to consult on the draft documents. The regulations require a minimum of a 4-week consultation period for SPDs, and that consultation should be in accordance with the authority's adopted statement of community involvement. The Council's adopted statement of community involvement 2020 also requires a minimum of 4 weeks consultation on SPDs. It is proposed that following agreement from the Cabinet of recommendations 3.2 and 3.3 in this report, that a public consultation will commence later in November 2022. Due to Christmas and New Year period, it's proposed that the length of the consultation is extended to 7 weeks into January 2023, allowing the public a longer time to respond. A consultation plan has been prepared and can be found in Appendix 9. This sets out the approach to the consultation, including the consultation questions, how the public can respond and the approach to informing people about the consultation. Consultation representations are requested to be provided by completing the questions within a response form. Completed forms can be posted to the council offices and they can all be emailed to the planning departments. In accordance with the council's adopted statement of community involvement, individuals or organisations that we have a statutory obligation to consult, and those who have asked to be contacted through the planning policy database will be directly consulted. The general public will be consulted through the non-direct methods such as social media and press releases. It is recognised that an updated developer's contribution guidance will have a direct impact on business in the construction sector, including local business companies who will use their document regularly when submitting planning applications and through the planning process. Planning and building control records will therefore be used to write directly to those businesses that are involved in the construction sector in Castle Point to notify them of the proposals. If the Cabinet agree the recommendations set out in this report, officers will commence a public consultation on the draft DCG SPD library in accordance with the consultation plan and the Council's adopted Statement of Community Involvement 2020. There is currently no examination process for SPDs. Therefore, after public consultation, officers will prepare final versions of the DCG SPD library and will take for formal adoption to full council. If the public consultation raises issues which need further investigation and significantly changes the draft documents, there may be another policy and scrutiny meeting on these issues. As highlighted in the report, as new evidence emerges, new DCG SPDs may be prepared, such as a biodiversity, open space, blue and green infrastructure SPD and a heritage SPD. These SPDs will follow the same process as above, or if planning reforms take place, adoption will be in line with current legislation at the time. So the conclusion is that there are various benefits of having an up-to-date developer contributions guidance. It ensures that the SPD is in line with national policy and legislation. It puts the council in a stronger position to require planning obligations of the right amount and type, and it provides a clear checklist for developers of what is expected from them from the outset. The existing developers contribution guide has served the council well and provided clear advice to the applicants, but it is dated. This new version will provide that update and align our requirements with those in the Essex Developers Guide to Infrastructure Contributions. By creating a DCG SPD library, it allows the council a more flexible position to amend and update each document as and when there are changes to evidence or processes from the council or other stakeholders. This ensures that the SPD library can be effective and maintained more easily. For the reasons set out in the report, it is therefore recommended that the Cabinet approve the recommendations in order to proceed to the next step into the SDP process. That's it, Chairman, and if any Cabinet members or members have got any questions, I can't answer them, I will pass them over to the officer, Maria Hennessy. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gibson. It's a very long report and well presented, even though we have a few gremlins coming in the works, but that is excellent and it's a very important document. Can I ask Cabinet members, are there any questions from Cabinet members? Councillor Fuller.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to say firstly, I congratulate the Gibson for your eloquent delivery of the report, and also I think congratulations to the Planning Policy Officer, the author of the report, for such a comprehensive document and well informed and very informative document. I do have one question. It relates to the section 6.415, which is the guarantor element of the section 106 contributions. I think this is a very important and a very welcome development to make sure that the council has certainty that section 106 payments will be paid by means of the guarantor or bond. My question relates to at what point does that kick in, because section 106 payments are generally, certainly on larger developments, are staged depending on numbers of properties built and at what stage, and then there are payments which then become due at various stages in that build process. My question is if there is a delay in meeting one of those timelines for payments to be made, is that the point when the guarantor scheme will kick in, or is it basically a method of last resort at the end of the development when all the payments should have been paid but they haven't? Just a little bit more clarity about how that guarantor process is likely to be envisaged to work, to make sure that the council gets the benefit of those contributions as early as possible, particularly the fact that they will be those contributions will be banked into an interest-bearing account. So obviously we don't want to spend too long getting those which are actually due. Would it be a case that the guarantor will be called upon to make the stage payments? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fuller. Would it be probably best if I pass you to Ian to answer this one, because Ian's the one I had discussions with about the bonds and the guarantors.
Thank you for your question. So Section 106 agreements, we're making sure there is the guarantor provision in there. There was also default provisions, so the two are linked together. So when you negotiate the Section 106 agreement, whilst there is a standard form that we use as a basis, we have to negotiate through that process how these provisions interact with one another. So it will all be set out. It's difficult to answer it on a generic basis because it all depends on the case. Certainly, when if a developer doesn't make a payment, and the default provision kicks in, then that is the point at time when the guarantee provision also kicks in, again, depending on what it says in the Section 106. It's always important for us to ensure through Section 106 agreements that we get the payments when we need them, not necessarily right up front. A lot of local authorities and councils I've worked at, they ask for the money up front and it's not needed for another 5 years, and of course cost inflation has diminished the value of that. So we've built into the guarantor mechanism a formula for calculating what the value of that guarantee will be in future years, because obviously it has a value on the Section 106 on the date it's signed, for example £1 million, but with indexation that value increases. So there is a formula that we've built in, we're building into Section 106 agreements that will set that out. Now that can't be open-ended. You can't have an indexation formula that's open-ended. So we've set a limit in most instances to 10 years. If it is a multi-phase scheme that's going to be delivered over a longer period, then obviously we'll need to make that adjustment to cover that longer period. But hopefully that answers your question.
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay, no more questions from members? Members of the council, any questions? Right, Councillor Thornton. Councillor.
Thank you. Yes, on the previous report on the SIL, we were told that the SIL officer, there would be a mechanism whereby they would do a scrutiny going back a number of years on the 106 agreements to see that they have been implemented correctly, collected, and the money had been spent. Is that still the case, please?
Thank you, Councillor Jackie Thornton. Once again, I'll probably pass that question to Mr. Ian Butt.
Yes.
Plain and simple. Councillor McLean.
Thank you, Leader. That was well done, Councillor Gibson. That was a good report. It wasn't until I read the end, Maria Hennessy, that I realised that the reports I used to have to give for 100 pages as well. Just a quick question. On the Section 106 guarantor that you mentioned during the report, what form does that guarantor take? Is it a bank guarantor or is it a personal guarantee? My only concern is that if someone has a limited company, as an example, then, or a limited liability company, then the guarantor is worthless. So is it a bank guarantor, and how guaranteed are we?
Thank you, Councillor McLean. Again, I'll probably send this one to Ian Butts.
As Councillor Gibson said, it's a bond or it's a parent company guarantee, and it can also be a director's guarantee as well. What's really important here, if an organisation is not prepared to enter into a guarantor provision, then we don't have to sign the Section 106 agreement and they don't get their planning consent, because a planning consent subject to Section 106 is only issued once the Section 106 has been signed.
Okay, members, thank you very much. So, a very good debate, and this is so important that people, developers especially, should be paying their dues, and I think that's important, and that should really basically tighten things up. So there are 5 recommendations, members, are they agreed? Agreed. Thank you very much. I know he'd like a rest, but it's Councillor Gibson again on the playing pitch indoor build strategy. Councillor Gibson.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll try not to break another microphone. The purpose of this report is for the Cabinet to endorse the playing pitch strategy and action plan 2018 and indoor built facilities needs strategy and action plan 2018 and 2022 updates for both documents. Endorsement is also sought for the local football facilities plan 2018. The recommendations of this report is that the Cabinet endorse the playing pitch strategy and action plan and 2022 update. The Cabinet endorse the indoor built facilities needs strategy and action plan 2018 and 22 update. And the Cabinet endorse the local football facilities plan 2018. The background to this report is playing pitches and indoor sports facilities are vital to the health and well-being of residents in the community. They provide opportunity for individual and organised support which brings individuals and groups together, and space for casual sport and recreation use. The council is a key landowner with a supply of playing pitches across a range of sports, but principally football, rugby and cricket. Revenue is gained through pitch and facility hire, and through this provision the council supports a number of local sports teams. Our indoor facilities include the Waterside Farm and Runnymede leisure centres and increasingly hiring out of community halls. As part of plan making and strategic asset management, the council will benefit from a strategic assessment of which is required to meet the demand and needs of the borough, and an assessment of investment requirements, priorities and where funding could be sourced. A clear strategy helps funding applications, contributes towards infrastructure, planning and can support investment through, for example, the Community Infrastructure Levy in facilities. The report seeks endorsement of the playing pitch strategy and action plan 2018 and indoor built facilities needs strategy and action plan 2018 and 2022 updates for both documents and the local football facilities plan 2018. These documents provide a clear strategy for the protection, enhancement and provision of sporting facilities within the borough. I'm going to skip now to leave 4.2. The action plans set out in the current supply and demand data of sporting facilities in Castle Point, as well as where provision of sporting facilities could be improved in general or in relation to growth. The playing pitch strategy refers to sports which are largely undertaken outdoors, such as football, cricket, rugby union and netball. The indoor facilities assessment looks at sports that are provided indoors, such as badminton, squash, sports halls and swimming. Playing pitch and built indoor needs assessments were undertaken in 2018. This was part of the evidence for the now withdrawn local plan. These assessments then informed action plans which set out individual sport and facility recommendation. The action plans are used by a number of organisations including the council, sport organisations, education establishments, community sport networks and other stakeholders, and ensure that stakeholders are aware of where improvements could be made. These assessments have been used to inform a local playing pitch strategy, and indoor built facility action plans which set out what is required and where in the borough. The action plans are intended to be used as a supporting document for local planning work such as planning policy and planning applications, as well as recommendations for individual sports, and they will provide the following. To identify current supply and demand issues for sport and recreation facilities based on quality, quantity and accessibility. To enable the council to plan appropriately for the protection and or enhancement of existing facilities and identify sites best suited for development, new provision or refurbishment. To enable the council to plan appropriately in compliance with the NPPF for the creation of new and or replacement facilities, including opportunities for relocation. To provide recommendations to individual sporting sites to identify whether existing infrastructure is fit for purpose to deliver local priorities, corporate priorities and wider health and wellbeing outcomes in an efficient way, now and in the future. To review the appropriateness and effectiveness of existing local standards and provide policy recommendations and practical proposals for securing investment into sport and open space, such as through planning obligations and the Community Infrastructure Levy. To provide a robust, transparent and effective means of justifying requirements and standards to identify how sport and recreation can contribute to the Council's corporate agendas, including the responsibility for public health, to deliver healthier lifestyles and achieve positive health outcomes. To identify opportunities for efficiency savings in council-owned facilities and options for asset transfers to charities, trusts and community-run organisations. In 2022, an update of the baseline information with a playing pitch assessment and built indoor needs assessment was prepared to determine whether the recommendations in the action plan for key facilities in the borough remain up to date and improve the reliability of the evidence. This update keeps the action plan relevant before a full review is undertaken. In 22, update was undertaken with the support of the Playing Pitch Strategy Implementation Group, which was set up in 2020, consisting of sporting national governing bodies, Sport England, Active Essex and officers in the Leisure and Planning Policy team at Castle Point Borough Council. The role of this group is to provide a forum for relevant stakeholders to share information to aid implementation for the action plans. I won't be able to read out the action plans and about the Section 106 agreements again. Let's go to the summary 4.31. The local football facilities plan for Castle Point identifies opportunities to accurately target investment in football facilities within the borough. This plan presents priority projects within the borough where potential investment will help implement improvements or deliver 3G pitches, grass pitches, changing rooms, pavilions, clubhouses and small-sided facilities. The local football facilities plan is the go-to document for football facility investment within the borough. However, it does not guarantee the success of future funding applications. Each of the priority products will have to follow an application process to show how it will deliver key participation outcomes, be a quality and sustainable facility and demonstrate suitable match funding. This document provides a robust basis for collecting developer contributions through SEAL Section 106 planning objections towards sport facilities where growth arising from a development is relevant to any of the identified projects. It has been found that 3G football turf pitches create playing surfaces that replicate a good standard natural turf pitch while significantly increasing the levels of use. With regular maintenance programs, FTPs can easily be used all year round with no decline in quality which can be experienced with natural grass pitches. There is therefore a programme of investment in FTP proposed in the local football facilities plan, alongside proposals for improvements to grass pitches. I won't go where the pitches are, but 8 priority projects have been identified to works to improve natural grass pitches at Waterside Farm Leisure Centre, the Dean School Sports Centre, Benfleet Playing Fields, Castleview School, John Burroughs Park, King George V Playing Fields and the Cornelius School and Woodside Park. This plan is periodically updated by the Essex County Football Association and associated partners, and it is likely that future iterations of this document will be presented to the Council's Cabinet for endorsement. The playing pitch calculator. As highlighted above, Sport England have produced 2 tools to calculate the amount of developer contributions for certain sport facilities. These calculators take the level of growth expected from residential development and have specific formula to generate the increase in demand expected for certain sports. These calculators take the population growth figures, which is estimated at 2.4 or 2.5 persons per household, depending on the housing mix of the development, multiplied by the number of new homes that will be built. For example, a flatted scheme of 10 1 or 2 bedroom flats, then the following will be applied, obviously 2.4 times 10 gives you 24. For a residential scheme providing larger family houses, a 2.5 assumption may be used within the above formula. The playing pitch calculator currently determines financial contributions for the following outdoor pitch types: football and natural grass pitches, rugby union pitches, cricket pitches, 3G artificial grass pitches. The sport facility calculator currently determines financial contributions for the following indoor facilities: artificial grass pitches, indoor bowls, sports halls and swimming pools. Some sports do not have information currently to fully determine how growth from an individual development site would lead to a specific pitch or indoor belt facility requirement. Therefore, as more information emerges, Sport England may add more sport types onto the calculator. In all instances, developer contributions will only be sought if they are necessary to make the development acceptable in planning terms. They are directly related to the development and they are fairly and reasonably related in scale and kind to the development. The use of these calculators will be used where a major development will lead to increases in demand and where there are specific projects that Section 106 money can be used for. For example, if there are no identified projects to increase swimming pool provision in the borough, planning obligations will not be sought for such use. However, contributions could be sought from a development where it is near an identified priority project in a local football facilities plan, where the growth from the development could lead to an increased demand at such facilities. Yeah, I won't read the human resources and legal implications, so if there's any questions, if I can't answer them, I will direct you to the author. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Gibson. Members of the Cabinet, any questions? Members of the Council, Councillor Hart?
Thank you, Chairman. My question is about multi-use games areas. The report says there are 5 sites identified in providing muggers or multi-use games areas in Castle Point. What have they used to classify an area as a multi-use games area? Because it can be quite varied, and we look in Hadley. We were looking at one point to have a multi-use games area in there, which was an enclosed area, which has 5-side football, basketball, netball, all kinds of sports in one area with its own non-rattle fence around it, that kind of stuff. Now that's what I would classify as a multi-use games area in its true sense. But can you just tell me what classification they've used for this and where they are, please?
Thank you, Councillor Hart, for your question. I will pass it over to Maria, who will gladly answer for you.
So supporting this document is the play and pitch strategy. So I need to find the exact definition, but that would have what the classification of that is, and that's based on what Sport England would put in for that, because they're the key partner in the document. So I can find that for you and then send that across.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Hart. We will come back to you with that question. I mean, I would also like to point out, I think you may remember, I think the sort of multi-use sort of sports facility you're talking about is that John Burroughs once had a, if you like, a concrete sort of football pitch with goals, and it had the hoops for basketball at each end. No, it was there, and it was removed to put parking there, round the corner. But I will get the answer, come back to you.
I appreciate the fact it says improve the quality and encourage usage. So hopefully we can look at improving them and get some of the ones that I could describe moving forward. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Ainsley.
Thank you, Warren. Councillor Gibson. Talking about developer contributions for large developments, are the sports facilities intended to be on site, or could they be off site? For instance, if an area needed some investment that was located within say a 10-mile radius of the development, could the the sports facilities be improved there, or do they actually have to be on site?
Thank you, Councillor Ainsley. I believe that they don't have to be on site, but I will get clarified from Maria for that. Thank you.
So they can be on site or off site, so they have to be relevant to the development, but the action plan sets out the different types of areas that could be improved for the different sporting facilities. So they'll usually be off site due to the size of development that would happen in the borough typically. That they'd normally contribute to improvements to existing facilities, because the need arising from a development probably wouldn't cause the need for a new facility as a result just of that development.
Thank you. Yes, I thought.
Councillor Isaacs.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Councillor Gibson. You're actually correct about John Burroughs. There was a basketball court and it was removed for antisocial behaviour. But that's not my point. I just wanted to clarify that is correct. Couple of things, and I'll have to declare an interest, Mr. Chairman, because I'm a member of one of the clubs, the cricket club at Benfleet. In the strategy, it looks at 218 to 222, and it mentions South Benfleet Cricket Club. There is no such club as South Benfleet. It's Benfleet Cricket Club. And I will tell you that we have had an influx of young girls wanting to play cricket since last year, and I think that's going to be the same with football. I think there'll be lots of young girls and women that want to play football. It's nice to see that up until the age of, I think it's 15 with cricket, they girls and boys actually play in the same team, and that does happen. And some of the girls in the local area actually play for the men's team on a Saturday. So over 18s can actually play in the men's team. So it's welcomed, but I just think that the strategy and some of the work that's been done here needs to be updated, because 218 to 222 We had 3 years of COVID where people weren't doing much sport, and I think now it's coming back into the frame, and it could encourage more people to participate in sport, so that needs to be looked at.
Thank you, Councillor Isaacs. Councillor Thornton.
Yes, just a small point. When we're converting grass pitches to artificial pitches, is there any option to add in some kind of planting scheme somewhere around the area to compensate for the biodiversity loss?
Thank you, Councillor Fulton. That's a good question, and that's one. Shall I pass it to Ian or to Maria? Ian, you happy to answer that? Thank you.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because obviously from a biodiversity perspective we've lost the grass, although it doesn't have great biodiversity value, but obviously an artificial pitch has less. So that's something that we can take up, we'll take on board when we come to design work in terms of a new pitch.
Okay, thank you, members. I think what Councillor Isaac said, the strategy will keep rolling on, because I don't think young girls are coming into it. I think they're already there. And when I look in the sports fields not far from me, the amount of girls out there playing football and even rugby, and which has got to be applauded. And I think because of the success of the England women's team football and all the women's Premiership League football, more and more girls are getting into that, so that's got to be applauded, and I think the strategy will basically improve as time goes on. So members, there's 3 recommendations there. Is that agreed? Agreed. Thank you very much, members. There are no other matters. That concludes formal business, and I say good night.